1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. How is the sound, Linda? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. You good? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Huh? You what?
Test. 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 All that's on the screen is a map of Europe.
Sorry?
All that's on the screen is a map of Europe. Yeah, I know.
The number of bills they've been able to pass. So, you know, Speaker Blake's the lack of bills. It has been quite a historic Congress and not for great reasons.
Well, we saw a lot of important things happen this week, including the attempted ouster of the Speaker of the House. And Mike Johnson has been talking about this, sat down with Politico, Rick, to talk about the experience and what he thinks might follow. And remembering that he was saved in part with the help of Democrats. Here's Mike Johnson in his conversation with them.
Look, we were trying to do here in the government. I'm glad that that was done. That's for today. They often get it done. I regret it had to come to that. I spent a lot of time talking with Thomas Massie and Margaret Taylor and David Pongosar about it. It's the way I operate.
You know, he says he actually spoke with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tom Massey, Rick, as soon as they got off the floor following this motion to vacate vote. Does Mike Johnson try to rebuild the Republican conference or just walk with the help of Democrats from here?
You know, I mean, there's so much anxiety now within the Republican caucus, and this latest attempt by Marjorie Taylor Greene to top of the leadership.
Somebody's got their TV on.
Hi, before we start, could I ask everybody to, on Zoom, to mute themselves and in the room to turn off their phones? Thank you. We're going to start in a minute.
Great, thank you. Oh, that's fine.
Can you turn the lights?
Yes, I'm just, after I read this, we can turn them off. We'll turn off the lights after I introduced our wonderful speaker. Before I do, if there are any board members here that would like to make an announcement, please feel free to do so. Anyone? Okay, and then I will announce that our last meeting for this fiscal year, I guess, is in June, and it will be on Japanese art prints. And something we haven't covered before, and we hope you'll join us. And that's, I don't know. I think it's June 12th. I should know that, but it's always the second Friday of the month. And now we have to get down to what's really exciting. We're happy to have as our speaker today, Christian Quinton. He was born in the town of Sabruac, Brieux, on the north. It's been a long time since, it's been at least 10 years since I had college friends. On the northern coast of Brittany in France. He studied at the Beaux-Arts Academy in Paris before moving to the United States in 1981. His pen and ink drawings, oils, and pastel paintings have been exhibited in many solo and group shows. Christian said, as he says, one coming up in Paris. He's been represented by the famed Vorpal Gallery at San Francisco and New York, which gave its first U.S. show to M.C. Escher. He has been the recipient of numerous public commissions and is represented by the Lord Gallery in Los Angeles. He's also presented over 40 art history lectures, including right here for the Oakmont Lifelong Learning Program. Please join me in welcoming Christian Quinton. And also, do check out his website so that you can see some of his beautiful art if you wish. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So my name is Christian Quinton. I'm from a town called Saint-Brieuc, if you want it to be pronounced correctly. Yeah. So I am an artist. I work with oils. I work with pen and ink. I work with graphites. I do all kind of things. And so I love art, but I also love history. So I have given about 40 different lectures on art and history. And today's subject is going to be Dutch painting of the 17th century. I have given previous lecture on early Flemish work. Like I've given lectures on Hieronymus Bosch and Peter Bruegel the Elder. Can you guys turn off the light, please? Thank you. Thank you. So this will be about Dutch painting of the 17th century. Thank you for being here. And I'll just start. What you're looking at, obviously, is a map of Europe, right? It's a really cool map of Europe. And can you guys perceive where Holland is on the map? It's way up north, so I'll give you a little close-up once I find the button. That's not this one. Why isn't it moving? Hold on. Little technical problem. Oh, there it is. No, that's not that. I'm having trouble moving the picture. Stay with me. Oh, there we go. It's because I made it bigger. So this is a map of Belgium and Holland. Some of you have been there, right? Yeah, do I trust that? So you can see how flat it is. It's very, very, very flat, right? So what were those, they changed name these provinces, but I will tell you about the Dutch painting of the 17th century, which is a very extraordinary period. For one thing, the art of that period will be void of religious painting, which really dominates, most painting of the 17th century. So it's a unique reflection on a culture, the Dutch culture of that time. So I'm going to go back a little bit in history. This is a map of the Duchy of Burgundy. The Duchy of Burgundy was part of the French kingdom. So you can see the Duchy of Burgundy is in yellow, right? And the Duchy of Burgundy also owned all those property you can see to the north, Flanders and what would become Holland, right? So that was part of France in 1467. And then it became part of the Habsburg Empire. The Habsburg Empire was sometime based in Vienna, so it's those green areas. So now that area that was Holland is no longer part of France, it becomes part of the Habsburg Empire. And the Habsburg Empire included Flanders, the Luxembourg, the Netherlands, it included Spain, it was a very large empire, as you can see. So then you had the creation of the Dutch Republic in the 17th century. So the Dutch Republic just appeared out of nowhere. What happened is Europe, Western Europe was preeminently Catholic, right? And it was ruled by Rome. But there were a lot of religious abuse, right? Like, for example, you could buy indulgences from the Pope. An indulgence means you could buy redemption for your sins, right? So you would not have spent so much time in the purgatory. If you gave some money to the church, so you had people like Luther. You've heard of Luther, right? The German Protestant. He came along and started, proposing changing in the church. And then came Calvin. Calvin was a much more fanatical French Protestant. So Holland, the Dutch Republic, became Protestant, Lutheran or Calvinist, So it was then at war with the Spanish Netherlands because Spain was part of the Habsburg Empire. So anyway, it's complicated, but just realize that the Dutch Republic became Protestant and was at war with Spain. This is once I find the button, this is a 17th century plaque of the Dutch East India Company headquartered in Amsterdam. So although the Dutch Republic was very, very small, it contained about 1.5 million inhabitants. It controlled a very wide network of seafaring trade routes, right? So it became a very wealthy country. Thus, it produced a lot of art, right? So it had trading companies like the Dutch East and West India Company, and it established a very strong Dutch colonial empire. It amassed a fleet of 2,000 ships that were initially larger than those of France and England. So what you're looking at is a map of the trading region of the East India Company. So the income from these trades allowed the Dutch Republic to become one of the most prosperous nations in Europe, despite its very small size. So it had a monopoly of the Asian trade, which included spices like pepper, clove, nutmeg, cinnamon, ginger, which were previously unknown. So you can see they traded with the island of Sumatra, Java, Borneo, Malaysia, and Indonesia. So I wanted to give you a little thin layer of history before we start. A very distinctive feature of the period compared to European painting was the very small amount of religious painting, because Dutch Calvin forbade religious painting in churches. The same way Islam doesn't allow images of the prophet in the church. So they became, very orthodox. I mean, this painting, this is a painting by a Dutch painter called Dirk van Ellen. It's called Iconoclast in Church, and you can see them removing artwork and statues from the church. And one thing about the Dutch Republic is that enormous quantities of artwork were produced. It's been estimated that over 2 million paintings were created within that century, in 20 years. 20 million paintings. So the volume of production meant that the prices were fairly low, except for best known artists. This is a painting of the Haarlem Painters Guild. by an artist called Jean Debray. So when you did artwork, you did not do like I do. I'm alone. I do artists on my own. You were part of a guild, right? You were part of a guild, and you entered that guild as a small child. Your parents paid for your tuition. So you were an apprentice from the age of like 12, you know, and you studied under a master. You weren't paid. Your parents paid for your tuition. And when you had become really good after long years of training, you then created what's called a masterpiece, right? A masterpiece means you created a great piece, and that was your passage to you opening your own shop, right? Does that make sense? Where are my glasses? So here you're seeing this painter guild. So paintings became it's very unusual because regular people started buying painting for their homes, for their store. It was very common for Dutch people to have paintings. And Dutch people became rather wealthy because they maritime trade. So this is one of the trade of the Dutch Republic. There were very different hierarchy of painting genres. There were history painting. That was the first one, but that was also the hardest to sell, as Rembrandt found out. The second one was portrait painting. And then you had genre painting, you know, painting of everyday life. And then you had landscape, seascape, and eventually you had still life painting. So all these works are going to reflect a very distinct society. So all the artwork you're going to see today give you a very particular view of the Dutch, how people lived at the time. So I'll start with history painting. This history painting means it's a category that means painting that depicted historical event, but also biblical, mythological, literary, or other allegorical scenes. So I'll start with somebody everybody know. I'll start with Rembrandt. Rembrandt is considered one of the greatest artists in the history of art. He was born in the town of Leiden in 1606, and he painted in a wide variety of styles. But you'd be surprised to know that his later years were marked by financial hardship. You know, like Monet, he died fairly poor. So this is a self-portrait. This is at the National Gallery of Art in Washington. This is a self-portrait. It's painted in 1659. So I'm going to show you artwork. Again, I was talking to my friend Noel. I'm going to show you a lot of artwork, but I'm not going to tell you what you should like about the piece. So I'm not going to give you an analysis of the piece. You're likely to only see this piece for 10 seconds, right? And I just want you to enjoy it because you may never see it again. You don't need me to tell you how you should feel about the piece. Just enjoy them. This is Man with a Turban by Rembrandt. Look at the light. I can probably make it a little bit bigger. See that? You see how realistic his painting is of faces, which was not the case in previous century. You know, faces were often idealized. And this is the, whoop, let me make it smaller. This is the anatomy lesson of Dr. Nicolas Tulp. It painted in 1632. It's an Nolan canvas that measures 85 inches tall. So it's wide, I'm sorry. It's very, very tall. Yeah. But you know, when we look at medicine in the Middle Ages or the Renaissance, we make fun of it because it seems so primitive, right? But just think that in 400 years, what people would think of what we do now, you know? So we think we're so advanced, but in 400 years, we may find what we do. So at least they were trying. This is a painting of Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, with a bust of Homer. It's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it measures 56 by 54 inches. I have this stunning piece. One of my favorite pieces of Rembrandt is this one. It's Jeremiah lamenting the destruction of Jerusalem. So it's It's an interpretation of a biblical passage. Is that beautiful? Look at the colors, the softness. And if I can get a little bit bigger. I thought this painting was absolutely magnificent. And the last of Rembrandt I will show you is this one. It's just a little landscape. It is very pretty. It's a landscape with a parable of the Good Samaritan. It's at the Krakow National Museum in Poland. The next artist I will show you is Rubens. You guys have heard about Rubens, right? He's not my favorite artist at all, but I'm going to show it to you because everybody knows Rubens, right? So I'll start with this. You see this painting? This is Anna of Austria. She was Queen of France. So which is typical of the Renaissance period. You can see the face is painted rather naively, right? But the work is all on the clothing. So while the face, is nothing memorable about it, the clothing is incredible. So Rubens was born in the town of Siegen in 1577. His father became the legal advisor and the lover of Anna of Saxony. Saxony was a German province, and he ran a very large workshop in Antwerp and produced, probably 15 to 1700 paintings. He was also a diplomat and an art dealer. That said, you can see the work on the clothing. I can tell you that one of the ways that people would paint clothing, because this would take months, is they would have a woman sitting in the clothes. The clothes were heavily starched, right? So the woman could just get out of the clothes and the dress will remain intact. That's how they did it. So, if you look at the clothing, it's an amazing painting. So I'm going to show you a better painting by Rubens. This is a portrait of a woman with a rosary. It's at the Thyssen Museum in Madrid. Again, if you look at the clothing, it's just absolutely amazing. Look at the details of I don't know what you call that thing around her neck, but it's very popular in Holland. Do you guys have a name for that? Huh? Roof? That's what it's called? Look at the work into that. Look at the chain in her hand. This is months of work. But I owe it to you to show you one of the worst painting he ever did. You're going to see it. It's this piece. This is called The Creation of the Milky Way. All right? So I don't mean to disparage Rubens, but I had to show it to you. That's the Milky Way. It's at the Museum del Prado in Madrid. So that said, I'll try to show you one of Rubens that's not too bad. This is the Miracle of Saint Hubert, and he was also painted with John Bruegel the Elder, the same family as Peter Bruegel the Elder. So that's for Mr. Rubens. The next artist is going to be Abraham Blomhart. So my pronunciation in Dutch is not great. He was born in 1566 in the town of Goringhem. He was a painter and a printmaker, and he studied in Paris. Mostly he worked on historical subject and landscape. So this painting that you're looking at is the parable of the weeds and the wheat. Have you ever heard of that parable? It has to do with the weeds and the wheat. So the weeds represent evil and the wheat goodness. So that's the painting. It's 40 inches by 52 inches. So again, it's a biblical allegory. This is painting that were inspired the Bible were often very happy painting. Like this is Apollo and Diana punishing Niobe by killing her children. So a lot of religious painting of beheading, crucifixion, they like that type of stuff. That said, this painting is absolutely astonishing. It looks very modern. It looks a little bit like Dali technique. Do you guys see that? It's a very unusual way to paint. So, you know, when you look at painting like that with a strong religious subject, if you're not religious, just focus on the quality of the art itself as opposed to the theme that is suggested. This is the last painting of this artist. This is called Grand Salk Volkshal Seca. You like my pronunciation? It means vegetable cellar. It's painted in 1620. I thought it was quite a quaint picture. The next artist is Joachim Wedwell. So his name is it starts with WTE. Try to pronounce her name with a W and a T right after that. How would you pronounce that? Any Dutch person in here? Nobody from Holland? No? So Joachim Wedwell was born in the town of Utrecht in 1566, and you're looking at his self-portrait. He was a successful flax merchant, and he was a town councillor, and his best work, again, dealt with mythological subject, and that often had a very strong erotic element. So he became famous in his day, and his reputation reached as far as Prague, where the Holy Roman Empire brought one of his paintings. So this is the Judgment of Paris. It's at the National Gallery in London. It's an oil and oak panel, and it's based on a Greek mythology, an event that dated to the Trojan War. But the painting is absolutely beautiful. It's a very unique way of painting. The colors are delightful. Another one of his mythological painting is this one. This is Perseus releasing Androma. Perseus was the son of Jupiter, and he falls in love with this woman Androla, but she's attacked by a sea monster. He saves her, like that, right? But that's what the painting is about. I found that painting quite beautiful. The colors are stunning. This is another biblical interpretation. This is Moses striking a rock. It's a 1624 oil on panel. It's at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. And last of these gentlemen, I'm going to show you this is the painting he did of his wife. His wife was Christina van Halen. It's an oil on canvas. So I find it quite charming that he had a painting of his wife. I can tell you one thing is if you look at her clothing, right? If I gave you a tube of black paint and a brush, it would look like a black blob, right? It takes a lot of skill to make this appear dimensional. Lot of skills. The next artist is Hendrik ter Bruggen. So this is very, very religious subject, and he was heavily influenced by the Italian painter Caravaggio. So he was a Dutch painter. He painted a lot of religious subject. He was born in La Hague in 1588, and we know very little of his life. This is Christ crowned with thorns. It's painted in 1620. So these are commission painting, right? Otherwise, I can't see an artist spending a year of his life painting something so dark. But that's probably what a church commissioned him to do. This one, as you'll see, is they like the darkness. This is the incredulity of St. Thomas. If I poke you there, does it hurt? You see that? So it's hard to imagine an artist spending so much time, painting such a dark subject. But these were the days. And this one, not my thing, right? It's the crucifixion with the Virgin on St. John. But the execution of the painting, the colors are just absolutely remarkable. I find it quite beautiful. It measures 61 inches tall, so it's a fairly large painting. It is at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And this one, by the same artist, is King David playing the harp. It's an oil on canvas painted in 1628. It's at the Warsaw National Museum of Art. And the last painting of this artist is this one. This is a laughing bravo. A bravo was a Dutch mercenary. So we'll move on to an artist called Gerard van Onthorst. I know the name are bewildering and it's hard to remember them. The next guy is Gerard van Honthorst. He was a Dutch Golden Age painter. He was known for his artificially lit scene. He was born in the town of Utrecht in 1592. So you can see his work is very influenced by Caravaggio, the Italian Renaissance painter. So this is Granida and Daffilo. Granida and Daffilo were lovers in a play by a Dutch writer called Peter Hooft. And this is Artemisia. So Artemisia is a mythological painting. It has been painted by different painters. Queen Artemisia, which is from the 4th century BC, she was from Asia Minor, and she was said by ancient authors to have mourned her husband. Her husband died, and she built a museum, a mausoleum for him that became one of 7 wonders of the world. But to top it off, she drank his ashes so that her body would become a living tomb and an example of virtue. That's the story. Yeah, she drank his ashes. That's the story. This is Gerard van Honthorst, same artist. This is a painting of the artist, Dutch artist Margaretha Maria de Roederer, and her painter, her parents, sorry. I thought it's quite a pretty painting, especially to see a woman painter. So you see what I mean? If I give you a tube of black paint, it would not look like this. You know, somehow they give dimension to something that most of us would have trouble doing. And the last painting of this artist that I will show you is this one. This is the Concert, painted in 1623. Very, very happy painting. So we move on to an artist called Jacob van Loo. He was born in 1614. He was active in Amsterdam, and he became known for his biblical scene. So this is a painting of Danae. A lot of people painted Danae. Danae is going to be painted by Rembrandt. Danae was a princess in Greek mythology, and her father, who wanted to get rid of her, he put in a chest adrift at sea with her son. And her son had been conceived by the god Zeus, but a fisherman saved them. That's the story of Danae. So this is painted by Jacob van Loo. This is the same Danae, but this is by Rembrandt, a different version. Very different way to go about it. And Jacob van Loo painted this, and this is a really quaint painting. It's just a portrait of the Miebeck Kruiwagen family. You can see the austerity, but you can also appreciate how people are dressed, you know, in the Sunday clothes, and it's a very accurate reflection of the Dutch society of the 17th century. So I'll move on to portrait painting. Portrait painting thrived in the Dutch Republic in the 17th century, mostly because it was a wealthy country. They had a lot of merchants, and so those merchants could buy artwork, could commission artwork. Because the art was influenced by Calvin, you know, the real Orthodox Protestant, you know, often the faces have the same dullness, because it was not okay to show emotion. You know, you had to be sober, and it's not okay to show these emotions. So the face was often drawn in a sitting or two, and the clothes were often left to be painted by assistants. So this is Frans Hals. There were a lot of militia company part of the Dutch army, and it was common for them to be painted. And often each individual person in the militia would pay a fee to be one of the person painted. They did not have photograph, right? So you paid a fee to be in the painting. This is the Militia Company of District 9th. It's an oil on canvas, which is at the Major Museum of Art in Amsterdam. You can see the hyper-realism of this painting, and certainly the quality of the painting. This is a portrait of a woman called Aletta Hannemans. She was the rich owner of a brewery, popular thing in Holland. Let me make it bigger a little bit so you can see the close. Look at this. It's crazy. It's incredible. Again, the face, face is okay, but the clothes are just incredible. They had assistant painting the clothes. Whoop. This is a portrait of a very rich cloth merchant. He was the founder of the city of Haarlem. This is a portrait of Willem van Huythuizen. It's an oil on oak panel that measures only 19 by 14. And what makes the piece is the tension. You can see how he's leaning in his chair. To continue with portrait painting, I love this painting. This is Thomas de Keyser. He was the son of an architect. He was born in Amsterdam in 1596, and he was a very popular painter in the Netherlands before he was eclipsed by Rembrandt. So this is a musician and his daughter. It's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it was painted in 1629. You see what I mean about black? And the next painting by the same artist, I love this painting. I can't tell you why. I think it's the contrast is incredible. This is Frederick van Veldhuizen and his wife Josina. It's at the Victoria National Gallery. You see again what I mean about black? Look at the contrast of this painting is absolutely amazing. Are they able to render different fabric, different shine, different, you can feel the texture looking at the painting. We move on to an artist called, let me make it smaller, otherwise I can't move on. Whoop. So this is not what I would call a great painting, but it's very, very interesting because it really reflects the Dutch society. This is Cornelius de Vos. He was a regular collaborator of Rubens, and you heard how I feel about Rubens, but this is the artist and his wife, Suzanne, and the children. It's painted in 1630. And he painted a better painting here. This is a portrait of a lady, but we don't know who she is. It was painted in 1632. Look at the quality of the clothing again. So on to portrait. The next artist is Isaac Luticius. At least that's how I pronounce it. He was actually born in London, but he was buried in Amsterdam, and he was one of the Dutch Golden Age painter. This is a portrait of a gentleman, all on canvas. So somebody wealthy commissioned this artist to be painted. And he painted this lovely painting. I absolutely love this painting. This is a portrait of a woman called Susanna Real. It's at the Rijksmuseum Museum in Amsterdam. Isn't that pretty? Isn't that quaint? Look at the clothing. I can tell you that this is very difficult to do, Only few people can do that. Look at the feather in her hand. It's a lovely, lovely painting. The next artist is Bartholomeus. Let me make it smaller. This is Bartholomeus van der Helst. He was considered to be the leading portrait painter of the Dutch Golden Age, and he won him the patronage of the Dutch elite. So he was born in the town of Haarlem in 1623. So as you see, this is another guild. You know, there were a lot of guilds depending on your profession. This is the Crossbowman Guild in celebration of the Peace of Munster between Holland and Spain. So you can see how people pay to be in this painting. It measures 18 feet wide, right? So you're talking about a painting that would require, I don't know, a painting like this would take me 2 years or more. I mean, it's a big, big undertaking. 20 feet wide. And this is a portrait. You know, the people are not necessarily pretty, right? But it's a very quaint scene. You know, it makes you feel like you were there in the 17th century. The people, you know, they're not trying to look better than they are. It's not stylized. It's a portrait of a rich Dutch cloth merchant called Jacob Hinlopen, and his wife was Lucia Wilsbrandt. So that's the love story. Don't they look happy? And this is a portrait, same artist, of Gertruida den Dubelde. It's an oil on canvas. So it's a very stiff pose, but again, it's beautifully executed. She was the wife of a naval commander in Holland, so a rich lady, and her husband paid for her portrait to be done. This, yeah. And I have one painting of one artist. His name is Adam de Colonne. You have to realize that when I show you artwork, I show you the best I saw, right? But you can be thankful to me because I see a lot of really, really bad painting, right? I do. 90% of them to me are really bad. So I pick the best for you. You would pick different one, but those are my taste. This is a painting of Lady Napier. She was the granddaughter of a gentleman called John Napier, and he was the inventor of logarithm. She was a Scottish peer, a Scottish noble woman. There's just something very quaint and particular about that painting. And that's all you'll ever see of her. That's how we know she even existed. The next artist here is John de Crits, and he's interesting because he was born in Antwerp in 1551, but he was active at the English royal court. So this is a painting of James I of England, King of England, and also, so he was James I of England, and he was also James VI of Scotland. He was a double king. This is an oil on canvas that is at the National Gallery of Scotland. That's what the king looked like. And John de Crits also painted this. This is the Baron of Monteagle and Morlaix. It's at the Denver Museum of Art. It's painted in 1615. So you see again, look at the work that is done on the clothes. Look at that. I move on to an artist called Daniel Mishden. And he was born in the city of Delft, but he settled in London and he became a court painter to James I. So this is a painting of the king, Charles I of England. Look at the clothing. Isn't that cool to see how he was dressed? Look at this. It's incredible. You know, for people who do artwork, this is a painting that for a single person would require a few years. It's just astonishing in details. And at least we have an image of a king. So I'll move on to painting of children. You guys like children, right? So painting of children. From the late 16th century, they developed a church tradition of child portraiture, in which the child appears finely dressed, surrounded by toys, by pets. Often the face is not very childish, but the primary aim was to record the child lives because life expectancy was very low, right? It was very rare for a child to make it to 20 years old. So, people felt compelled to have a portrait of their child. This is a great painting because it's called a lace maker. That woman is a lace maker. It's painted in 1656. It's 45 inches wide. It's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The next three are anonymous. This is a painting of two twins who died in infancy. It was painted in 1617. So the parents felt compelled to have a portrait made of the children after they died. This is I know it's very naive, right? So I'm not saying it's great, but it's very interesting. This is a portrait of Anna van Popma. You can see how the children tend to have an adult face. They don't look so childish. And this one, who is also very naive, you get the style, right? It was very popular in Holland. This is a portrait of a girl at 1 year old. I mean, she looked like 16, but that's a different thing, right? But that was very, very popular. Dutch people starting buying a lot of artwork. As I said, around 20 million paintings were made in a period of 20 years. However, only 1% of these paintings survived. So the next type of painting that I want to show you are genre scenes. Genre scenes are scenes of everyday life, right? So they show people, but not famous people, regular people. And it was a very, very popular genre. So they can be, single figure, it could be peasant family, it could be scenes in a tavern, parties, women at work, villages scene, market scene, etc. You can have horses, animals. So they're scenes of everyday life. One of the great painters of this genre was Jan Steen. And I only show you one of his paintings. But I found this interesting because this is a bowling game. Have you guys ever seen this game? You can see how they're trying to knock the pins. So this was a very popular game, and it's painted in 1655. So, these are everyday scenes. So these were very, very popular. The next artist is Gerard ter Broek. Gerard ter Broek was born in December 1617, and his work was later surpassed by Vermeer. You're going to see a lot of similarity between his work and Vermeer. This is called The Letter. It's called The Letter. It's painted in 1660, and it's an oil on canvas. Most people by then painted on canvas. This one is a glass of lemonade. Maybe she fell faint, and people thought it would be a good thing to give her a glass of lemonade. Isn't that cute? Painted in 1663. And this one is a maid milking a cow. So you're going to see a lot of cow in Dutch painting because cows meant wealth. If you had a cow, 2 or 3 cows, you were a wealthy man. So cow meant a lot. So you're going to see cow because that's what people were familiar with. So this is a maid milking a cow. The next artist is Albert Cuyp. He was one of the leading Dutch golden painter born in Dordrecht in 1620. He was a wealthy man, but he painted mostly landscape. I only have one painting of his that I chose. I found it beautiful. It's a young herdsman with cows, painted in 1655. And the next one is by an artist called Paulus Porter. This is called The Bull. You know, I just came back from Scotland. I was in the Highlands of Scotland where they have cows like yaks with hair all the way to the ground, and they are spectacular. Anyway, I found this painting quite remarkable. You know, this is not, you have to realize that nowadays an artist can look at photograph, right? You take a bunch of photograph and you paint from them. This was not the case. These guys would go in the field and do sketches, you know. So it's quite amazing that they would get this type of, you know, rendering. The next artist is Peter de Hooch. So this look a little bit like Vermeer. He was born in Rotterdam in 1629. He was the son of a bricklayer and a midwife. So he was a contemporary of Vermeer, and he mostly painted quite domestic scene, very much like Vermeer. This is called The Visit. So a lot of the art is about the light and the shade. So this is called The Visit. It's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. This one, I don't think it's a great painting, but it's very interesting. It's called Interior with a Woman with a Linen Cupboard. So you can see the woman of the house giving, I suppose, bed sheets to the maid. It's interesting to see the furnitures. You know, that's the thing about Dutch painting. It really reflects the society they lived in. So it's a unique look. And I chose this last painting. It's called The Maid Servant. It's an oil and canvas that is also at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So let's get to Vermeer. Everybody's heard of Vermeer, right? Because it's marketing. So Vermeer was a Dutch Baroque painter. He specialized in domestic interior scenes. He was moderately successful in his lifetime. He did not produce a lot of painting. He worked very slowly, and he used very expensive pigment. So that also made you very appreciated artist if you could claim to have access to expensive pigment, like lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, right? So if you had some expensive pigment, that would make you look really good. This is a painting of the city of Delft. It's painted in 1660. So I'll just, at least you'll have seen this painting. You can say I did show it to you. This is the girl with the pearl earring at The Hague. Why this painting is famous, I can't tell you. It has a lot to do with marketing. Like Mona Lisa is a good painting. It's not that great, but it was stolen, it became famous, so you know people know about it. This is a remarkable painting by Vermeer. This is The Art of Painting. It's painted in 1666. It's at the Art Museum in Amsterdam. The other one is my favorite. This is called The Astronomer. I found this one absolutely gorgeous. I'll show you some detail. See that? So that's The Astronomer by Vermeer. And the last painting of Vermeer that I chose to show you is this one that I found very, very pretty. This is a woman writing a letter with her maid. Look how carefully painted these people are, the expression. So the next artist is William van Mieris. He was born in the town of Leiden, and most of his work is genre painting. So I'm showing you this painting, right? Because it looks very corny, right? Most people would go, oh God, bunch of angels on the ground and so forth. So, you know, the subject matter is a bit odd, but the quality of the painting is astonishing. The colors, the way it's made, it's such a unique painting. And he also painted, sorry, I forgot I had a microphone. He also painted, this is a remarkable painting and one of my favorite. This is The Rare Show. The Rare Show It's painted in 1718. So you can see there is like someone coming and doing a show for peasants. Isn't that a cool painting? It's painted in 1718. The next, and I was going in progression. The next paintings are going to be landscape painting. Landscape painting was a major genre in the 17th century in Holland. You know, a more realistic Dutch landscape was developed, and you're going to see a lot of dunes, western seacoast, winter landscape, ice and canals and things like that. This artist is Harry Med de Blaise. He was born in 1490, so he's a bit earlier. And he was, as I don't know if you guys know Joachim Patinier, he was very influenced by Joachim Patinier. This is a landscape with David and Bathsheba. David and Bathsheba were the husband and wife. They were the parents in Solomon in the Hebrew Bible. This one is a landscape with a foundry. It's painted in 1525. It's at the Prague National Gallery. And this is typical of earlier time where you had fantastic painting, because you have to realize this is a landscape showing Holland, right? Holland is totally flat, so it's totally made up, right? But look at this detail, how pretty this painting is. It's quite fantastic and very reminiscent of Joachim Patinier. This next artist is Hendrik Haverkamp. So this is a very common painting you're going to see in Holland. A lot of people ice skating on lakes, right? But these are the good ones. He was born in Amsterdam in 1585. He was a landscape painter. He specialized in winter scene. So he gives you a vivid description of the sports and the leisure in Holland in the 17th century, which were very, very popular. So you can see everybody's doing different things. So you learn about the society just watching how people are behaving on the ice. So this is a winter landscape with skaters. It's painted in 1608. This is another ice scene by Everkamp. So it's a pretty, you know, they did not have photograph, but this is a pretty accurate portrait of their life. And this is the painting that he did. This is the Great London Fire that happened in 1675, where the parliament was burned. So he must have witnessed that. The artist now is Jan Griffier. He was born in Amsterdam and he created mostly landscape for many, many years. So this painting, you know, you can see it's old, it has faded a bit. I'm sure it was a lot prettier when it was painted, but it's a river view, quite a fantastic. And this one, I really like this painting. This painting feels very modern. It's a Dutch snow scene with skaters, but I really like the way he rendered the buildings. It's quite pretty. It feels like an illustration for a children's book. I have one painting from an artist. I just have this one from an artist called Art van der Neer. He was a landscape painter. He was born in 1603. He lived and died in relative obscurity, and this is the only painting I found of his that I really like. It does remind me of Van Gogh, the earlier drawings of Van Gogh. It's quite beautiful painting. The next one is Johannes Abrahams Bierstraten. He was a Dutch painter. He was born in 1622, and he specialized in cityscape and marine art. So this is skating at Sloten. Sloten is a place. It's also at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And another artist of whom I'll only show you one painting is Jan van Goyen. This is a sandy road with a farmhouse. I found this painting quite beautiful. It only measures 12 by 16 inches. It's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art once again. I don't know, for some reason, this painting moves me. It's very pretty. So we get to a very different artist who was also influenced by Joachim Patinier and by Peter Bruegel the Elder. This is Tobias Verhoecht. This is a mountainous river landscape with travelers. So that's very common in early Flemish work where you have this fantastic background. This is supposed to be Holland, right? So they totally make up this mountainous terrain, but it is quite beautiful. So this is mountainous river landscape with travelers. He also painted a Tower of Babel. I meant to get rid of the white, but many people painted the Tower of Babel, right? But this is his version. It's an oil on canvas that is in a private collection. But I chose to show you this artist for this piece. This is called an alpine landscape. It measures 10 feet wide. So of course, nobody had been to the Alps. You know, they just make it up, which is what I do. Is that an amazing painting? 10 feet wide. Absolutely fantastic painting. Very dreamy and surreal landscape. So we done with landscape, and I'm going to show you some architectural painting, or some that have some painting that have some architectural elements, because this also fascinated the Dutch, the city, the church in particular. This is Dirk van Dellen. He
Can I make
specialized
some,
exclusively
Sandwich?
architectural painting and church interiors. Look at the interior of this room. Look at the complex perspective of this piece. Look at the ceiling. This is
Well, I saw uh, that
is there a ghost?
once.
Huh? Look at what a complex painting this is, you know? And again, it gives you, this is what we have to go about. This is how people dressed. I really like to see this painting for the clothing. This is how people dressed, you know, when they were going to an important function. The next one, the same artist, Dirk van Dellen. This is such an unusual painting. Whoop. Make it a little bit bigger. Oh. Come on. Come on. Yeah. This is, it's an unusual painting. It's a family beside the tomb of William I, who was the ruler of Holland at the time. Isn't that unusual to be painting a family next to his funeral monument? But it is exquisitely painted. Make it smaller. Yeah, there you go. So that's Dirk van Dellen. The next artist is Jerry Burkheide. He was best known for his wonderful cityscape, and he was born in the town of Haarlem. This really is an amazing painting. This is the Great Market in Haarlem. So let me make it a little bit bigger so you can appreciate. No, I wanted to show the, look at the, I don't know if I can, you see the ground? It really is an amazing painting. The details are phenomenal. And the figures and the shading, the shadows of the people. And that's how the on market day it would look like in the town of Haarlem in Holland. And I found one of his pieces that I found very beautiful. This is the New Welzich Voorburgwal Canal. Anyway, it's a painting of some canal in Holland. Right? Isn't that beautiful? Look at that. It's very, very unique. Yeah. Oh. Hey, what happened to my dear participant? Hey, people that are on Zoom, can you please mute yourself?
Am I using?
Because we can hear every sound that you make. We can even hear your thoughts. Yeah, so if you could mute yourself, that would be very nice. But stay with us. So the next level is going to be maritime paintings. So the Dutch Republic relied on trade, as I showed you.
I can't.
Yeah.
I don't hear what you're saying.
Yes.
Turn it off.
Okay.
Mute, mute. That's fine. She can barely hear you. It's fine. Maritime painting. So the Dutch Republic became very wealthy because of its sea trade with Indonesia and Java. That's how it produced a lot of work. So it had also a lot of wealth. It had a lot of wars at sea. So a lot of the artwork are going to show the experience with the sea or with rivers. So it's not surprised that maritime painting are going to be a very popular painting. This is Albert Kuip. This is a view of the Maas River at Dordrecht. Albert Kuip was a leading Dutch painter, and he was also a wealthy man, and mostly what he painted was maritime landscape. So this is a view of the Maas River, and this is another view of the Maas River at Dordrecht by Kuip. A lot of people on that boat. The next artist is Jan Posseles. He was born in the city of Ghent, and he produced realistic maritime painting, but they were always with overcast skies and very rough sea. So these are ships in a storm, and this looks very surreal, absolutely gorgeous, almost monochrome painting of the ocean. And here again, you're talking about people that did not take photograph of the ocean and painting them at home, right? They did sketches, they made it up, but somehow they made it look really good. They make it look appear as it's very realistic when it really isn't. So I found this painting very beautiful, and he also painted this of a Dutch ship in a gale storm. This is at the National Maritime Museum in Holland. This is a very common view of paintings in Holland where they show the dunes. You know, it's a flat country with dunes. This is by an artist called Simon de Vlieger. He was born in Rotterdam in 1601, and this is Beach View 1643, and it measures 33 inches wide. The next artist that does maritime painting, so here I'm showing you a painting that has really aged. You can see the cracks in the painting, but you can also imagine what it must have looked like when it was freshly painted. The colors would have been much more vivid and so forth. So this is Ludolf Backhuizen. He was a German-born painter and a leading Dutch painter of his day. This is the Dutch merchant ship in a storm. And the next painting of his is a Dutchman embarking on a yacht. It's quite an amazing painting with great, great contrast.
How they became so rich and
He doesn't get it. I think I could tell it 10 times.
painted a
It's fine.
20 million painting in 20 years.
He makes me laugh.
Yeah.
So the last artist I will show you about maritime painting is William van der Vulgen the Younger. He was another maritime painter, like his brother, like his father, and he was born in the newly created Dutch Republic. This is Dutch ships in a calm sea. So that's a very typical genre of the Dutch, you know, painting ships. And this one is the Resolution in a gale, so in a storm. So to continue with a different type of painting you found in Holland, I will now show you the last type, which is still life. Still life are not my thing, you know, but I will show you some incredible still life. That said, it was, it was a popular type, not as popular as the other, but they gave the artist the opportunity to display their skills in painting, you know, the texture and the surface. So I'm going to show you one painting by a woman. This is
Oh,
Really?
Oh,
This
look
is
at
a
that,
painting
how
by
beautiful.
Margareta Haverman. She was born in Breda in 1693. Breda, by the way, was the town where Peter Bruegel the Elder was born. She was a flower painter from the north of the Netherlands, and only 2 paintings of her survived. So she gained admission to the French Royal Academy in Paris. But again, you have to realize these paintings are old, they're dated, right? You can imagine they were much more brilliant when they were painting. But look at the incredible details of pieces like this. I mean, I paint. Just looking at this painting, I would say it would take me a year and a half to 2 years to paint that, right? This is another still life painting, is this one. It's William van Alst. He was born in Holland, but he lived in France, and he was a court painter to the Grand Duke of Tuscany. This is a still life with flower. Look at this still life. Again, that's not my thing, right? But look how well painted it is. It's not for
Well,
me.
the,
I don't like oysters. I don't like those things.
It
But
looks like a Greco, doesn't it?
no, it doesn't look like
Okay,
El Greco.
Chris,
It definitely doesn't look like
No.
El Greco. But look at look at the rendition of this painting. Look at the hyper realism of this painting. You see that? Again, you're talking about people that work with a candle. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have photographs to look on. So it is just remarkably painted. So a lot of time, the painting I show you are not necessarily my style, but I am in awe of the techniques of the artist. And here's another great one by an artist called Jan Levens. This is called Still Life with Books. It's painted in 1630. Jean Levens was a close contemporary of Rembrandt, and actually he shared a studio with Rembrandt. Let me see, 2 more artists. This is a painting by Jan David de Heem. Look at that. He was born in Utrecht, and he became quite famous for his work. This is a vase of flowers. Let me make it bigger for you. Look at that. Look at that. I mean, I can go bigger and bigger. It's just extraordinary work.
is that he's being an artist, that he just appreciates more.
Right. The last artist I'm going to show you, I have 2 paintings of her. It's a woman. We don't see much woman art, sadly, in the history of art. So I always like showing a woman work. This is Rachel Ruish. She was born in La Hague, and she specialized in painting flower. She became quite famous doing just that. Look at that. Look at that. I mean, it really is mind-blowing painting. The depth, the contrast, the colors, everything is in it. This truly is a masterpiece. And I will leave you, because eventually I have to leave. This is a forest floor by the same woman, a forest floor. Let me make this smaller. Whoop. A forest floor with flowers. It was painted in 1620. It's at the Ashmolean Museum of Art, and it measures 40 inches wide there. So that does it, guys. I try to show you show you different genre of that era. Dutch painting of the 17th century. And just before that, you have the great Flemish painter like Hieronymus Bosch and Peter Bruegel the Elder. So it's a small area that produced incredible artists. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. No. Questions are good. No, usually people have question. You can have question or you simply have commentary. Whatever you feel like saying, I'd love to hear from you. Yeah, you want you take the microphone, man, so everybody can hear you.
From your presentation, it was very clear that a lot of these paintings were in individual homes, maybe maybe guild halls and homes. Were there any opportunities for these artists to be seen by the public in museums or periodic art shows like we do today? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. One comment for people here who may not have seen it, there's a marvelous little art museum a maritime art museum in Oxnard, which is just north of Malibu. Has a lot of 16th, 17th century marine paintings. Well worth stopping to see if you're down that way.
Well noted. Anybody else would like to share something? Anybody else? Noel. Here, Noel. Thanks for volunteering.
One thing I noticed in this presentation is how, to my perception, how much has been lost in, I mean, I know that art has evolved and you know, our society is so much more technologically advanced, you know, apparently, but so much has been lost. So much has been lost. I mean, you look at the depth of this artwork, how much time it is so meticulous, and I feel like that's been lost in our culture.
Yeah, you know, as I said, 20 million paintings were created, and it's estimated that only 1%. So,
I mean, in the technique and, you know, in the you know, the detail and even in the clothing and I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible.
clothing are just magnificent. Anybody else would like to share something? Anybody? Yeah.
Actually, I see the influence of some of these paintings on your style. The clarity that you do with it's not quite abstract, but it's definitely personally interpretive. One thing I did notice about these paintings that I haven't really been aware of, but maybe the artists in the group have, is how effective the grays of the background were used to emphasize the foreground. And I think that was, but yet you still saw the detail of the background. I thought that was, is that unique for this particular time, or is it just used in general that I've not really paid attention to?
I think when you paint something, people get stuck. Like, for example, you're painting a dog, right? So
do this, otherwise they don't hear you on Zoom.
oh, that's true. Let's say you're painting a dog, right? So you want your dog to be seen. So most people put like a very like nothing background because they want the dog, you know, to not be superseded by a busy background. But it's actually the opposite. The more depth you have in the background, the more contrast you have in the foreground. So it's the depth of the background that gives contrast to the foreground. You need the two, right? So for example, if you're looking at a landscape here, right, you can see the mountain far away, right? But it's not vague. You can still see individual trees, even though they're a mile away, right? So artwork, you know, when before in the Middle Ages, you almost had like a very vague background, right? But then landscape became more prominent in paintings. So the background would have like really great landscape, you know? I don't know if I'm answering your question, but the painting acquired a lot of depth. If you look at Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci, you know, she's okay, you know, but the background is beautiful. That's what gives depth to her. If she was just painting on a white background, you would look flat, right? I don't think I'm exactly answering what you wanted to talk, but I like hearing from you, Charlene. Anybody else like the ice cream cone? No? No? The background of the architecture. Yeah. You think it was grayish? Oh, the light is on. I don't remember the gray, but you know, oh yeah, that one. Yeah, yeah, it was grayish, you know. But when I paint myself, I work from background to foreground. So I paint the background first, then only then can I know how much work to do in the foreground to make it pop from the background, right? So, but that's kind of all master painting. But people that paint like Primavera, which mean in one setting, like Van Gogh, you know, he gets a canvas, it's all done in one day. They would paint everything at the same time, foreground, background, you know. So it takes a lot more discipline and strategy to paint areas by areas, if that answers your question. Please.
I just wanted to know, since these works were so elaborate, were there assistants to these artists
Yes, he said that.
who did the work?
He talked about it all the time.
What I was telling you is that I was reading about it lately, is that every profession, like in France, like in England, certainly in Holland, they would have guild, different groups of profession, right? And it was very tightly controlled. You could not just say, "Oh, I'm going to be a what? You're going to do a butcher in this town." You could not be. You'd have to be part of this guild, right? So in order to secure employment for their children, parents would pay for their child to go to work into this guild. So the child would be at 12 years old, be working in a shop. So it'd be cleaning, sweeping, it'd be preparing pigment, it'd be cleaning brushes, etc., right? And he would start doing little pieces in the painting, etc. And he would do that for 6-7 years. And then came a time, maybe when he was 20, I don't know, where he would finally create his masterpiece. The masterpiece meant he became a master. Like you would get your black belt in karate. You've created something so good that now you could have your own shop. So it was very, very regulated. And it was hard for outsiders to get in, you know, all those so you're 12 years old and you're being told what you're going to do all your life. You know, it wasn't like now you had a choice, you know, it wasn't like that. Yeah. No, that was a very good question. Anybody else? No, before I shut down the microphone? Oops.
Hello?